So I wanted to talk about this 40 plus and horny, because I just feel like, first of all, I feel like there's so much misinformation like spread about women, about femininity, about women's sexual experience. I mean, on the one hand, I think deep within us, we all know that, you know, so-called older women who aren't even older, you know, I even think 70 or 80 is practically still quite young, you know, in relative terms, you know. I mean, if you think that I'm joking, you know that in Japan, if you live over 120 years old, the president will give you a plate made out of gold. And so many people were living over 120, they had to make the plate smaller, right? Because, you know, they wanted to save the gold, yeah, because before it'd been like, oh wow, they're over 120, but now it's like, there's just too many people living over 120, you know? So really, even if you're 70 or 80, you're not really that old, you know? And yeah, 40 or 50, you're just starting life, really, you know? And especially if you're practicing Taoism, because the purpose of Taoism is to do all these practices so that you can rejuvenate your body at the cellular level, you know, meaning the older you get, the younger you grow. Yeah, something like that. Or the older you grow, the younger you get. Sorry about the airplane going overhead. I hope you can still hear me okay, you know. So yeah, it's like there's so much information spread about women, you know, in their 40s and 50s, that we have these shopping trolleys full of cats, and you know, we are just miserable and we're not horny, or if we're horny, maybe it's like represented in a negative way, you know. I mean, people talk often about men are more sexual than women. This is another thing I disagree with. I also think that naturally women have much higher libido, sex drive, sexual appetite than men. It's kind of obvious. I mean, a woman could theoretically, you know, have sex for hours and hours and hours. I mean, I've done it once or twice to the point I actually felt kind of ill the next day, which may have been like dehydration. But, you know, we are, you know, when you think of the penis after the ejaculation and the guy not being able to move and the woman is still like, I want more, yeah? You know, this is what female sexuality is all about. Now, fast forward into a culture like we have today, which is extremely, extremely sex negative. And it's almost like many of the attempts to seem and appear as if it is sex positive is almost making the matters worse. You know, like I have big issues with things like lube, yeah? For example, a lot of lube anyways, whatever they say, it's not good for the vagina, yeah? On the second hand, I don't think it's necessary, because when everything is ticking together right, yeah, so that's both in terms of our own relationship with our body as the woman and us having the right pace being set with our partner, okay, the juices flow all in and of their own. And if the juices are not flowing, it's a sign, just slow down, yeah? Just take a bit of time, just ask your body, hey, what's happening? You know, why do I need to rest? I find when I've had these moments, it's just been really, really beautiful to just be with my body and just see, hey, nice, yeah, you know, because we're so used to forcing our bodies, you know, even we grow up forcing tampons into our vaginas without asking our vaginas how the vagina feels about it. Gynecological visits can be, you know, similar. I mean, I certainly never, when I started having sex, I never ever stopped and checked in with my vagina to ask my vagina, what does she want? It was only actually when I was going through this sexual awakening, I'd been doing the Tao practices for a couple of months, I had this epiphany, you know, also around some information I was given that I must always ask my vagina. And actually, I went from never having had an orgasm to being multi-orgasmic in about a week, yeah, after I really, you know, obviously all the practices and awakening the energy like was a huge important part of it, but it was like when that last piece of the puzzle just fell into place, it was just like, wow, amazing, you know. Now, when we think of like the different kinds of problems that women suffer, and sometimes it's before you know, even the 30s, or even before, you know, things like vaginismus is becoming more and more common, and I think that a lot of it is to do with insufficient foreplay, but also, you know, there is a lot of like forced sex going on in relationships or in dating situations, so-called date rape. I think it's really, really important as women that we are really clear about what we want, and really, really connected with our body, to make sure that the body is getting what we want, what the body wants, or things are likely to go wrong from there. Yeah, because if we're not connected into the body and we don't know what we want, we'll just play along with someone else's game, and we'll be perhaps looking to people please. We'll be maybe wanting to not embarrass ourselves by showing we're not so sexually knowledgeable. And it's very easy to just have sex in a relationship that can really, really mess up our bodies. I mean, one of the big things I learned through this process of, you know, learning to ask my vagina, what does she want? And it's more than just her just saying yes or no. There's actually, you see, if a vagina really wants sex, she will suck the penis inside. The penis does not need to be pushed in, ever. I would never, ever allow that anymore, ever. I haven't for years. It's not healthy, it's not good. The vagina should always be in control of the penetration, because if the vagina is not in control, what essentially happens, if you think the vagina and the pelvic floor is basically a whole set and a band of different muscles, and that these muscles have a reflex to suck. So it's very much like when a baby is first born, as long as it's not anesthetized and so on, it will put its head straight on the breast and it will just go like this. It's like a reflex in the mouth, and the vagina actually has that same thing. Because of people not taking enough time, because of women not being in touch with their bodies, because of us not understanding actually how to have sex, this reflex of the vagina has actually shut down and it stopped working. And this is actually behind like a lot of like incontinence and problems with the pelvic floor. It comes down to the fact that sex is happening without the reflex being activated. You know, I mean, yeah, when I started learning that with my body, it was just so many things changed for me. And one thing I noticed, because I do tantric massage and Taoist massage, Karsai massage, which involves massaging inside of the vagina, but specifically when you look at the Karsai, what you're doing is you're clearing something that we call sedimentation, which can be compared with blocked lymphatic out of the inside of the vagina and the outside of the vagina, in fact the whole area around the groin and even these parts of the body as well. But obviously it's well known because specifically it's working on the vagina. I mean, what I've noticed with so many women who are not experiencing sensitivity inside of the even on the outside of the vagina. Of course, most people feel on their clitoris, but the whole outside of the vagina should be sensitive to pleasure, and the inside. And it's very interesting because when you're doing the Karsai and you're going inside, it can take 5 or 10 minutes just to kind of go through that inch or two to get inside with your finger. And then when your finger is inside, you start to feel around on the walls. And what I just almost invariably find, unless someone is basically doing Taoist practices, what I find is it's like the whole inside of the vagina, it just feels like, I don't know if rough is even the right word. It's kind of like when your mouth is dry, but it's kind of all like a little bit, it just doesn't feel good. And normally they will say, no, they don't feel anything. But through this process of massaging, and I will definitely say, like, it's good to get the massage, but having the practice with it, you know, is pretty essential to basically keep the results. There's a whole change of the feeling of the texture actually inside of the vagina. And as I said, it's pretty much only the people doing like the Tao practices, like the meditations and the practices with the jade egg. I mean, if you learn the jade egg, but it's not with a Taoist instructor, you're probably not really getting too much benefits even from actually the practice, because there's this very specific way to, you know, to do it, which will get you like the real benefits that you can actually have from it, doing them in this original Taoist way. But yeah, I mean, I suppose I can just say that doing these practices, it made me realize how much vaginas are just not being properly treated. They're not being properly respected. And it's like they're almost dying. This is really the feeling I get. It's like vaginas are almost dying. And you know, we're taught, like, I mean, I remember even in school being told things like cross your legs so nobody smells your vagina, you know, or the whole idea that's put onto us so often that there's something shameful about the sexuality, or if we're showing our sexuality, we're maybe asking for trouble, or that there's something wrong with flirting, and, you know, just... there's so many negative messages put onto our sexuality. And then, I mean, I remember hearing literally when I was 18 years old that some of the boys were talking about this girl they'd all slept with, who I knew her as well. And they were just going, oh, well, you know, she obviously wasn't very experienced. She couldn't really, you know, take it, you know. And it put in my mind this idea, wow, okay, so being feminine and being good in bed is about taking it. I mean... now that I look back on it as an adult, I think it's so messed up, you know? And when I think, like, what messages are young girls getting now, when pretty much every boy that they probably know and go to school with is watch like hundreds, if not thousands, of porn videos, you know, what messages are going out to young girls now? It's just crazy, you know? And when I look back on it, I think it's seriously actually messed up my relationship with my sexuality, like hearing just that one single comment, you know. And the point that I'm making here is that there's so much to do with our beliefs, our emotions, our relationship just on an emotional level with our vagina that can affect the vagina physically. I mean, when we do the Tao practices, and a part of it is that we use the jade egg, yes, absolutely, but there's more to it, because in fact you don't need to put a jade egg inside to do the practices, because the practices are energy work. And when you start learning actually how to go in your vagina and start removing these blocked energies, you know, and it's very interesting, because I always say to people, don't put the jade egg in your vagina. Your vagina will bring the jade egg inside, invite it in if it wants to. You don't need to use the jade egg to do a jade egg practice, you know, as ironic as it is. I think with all of these Tao practices, you don't need, like this, same with the moving up of the sexual energy, you don't need to squeeze your perineum. You can move it up by just learning how to work with energy as well, you know. I mean, this first number one state of our emotional relationship with ourselves, our relationship with our vaginas, with our bodies, the various emotions that we've experienced that we haven't processed, that have turned into blockages within the body. I mean, I think specifically the way we as women are shamed for feeling anger, because anger is so important for the sexual energy. If someone is repressing a lot of anger, it's going to automatically affect that sexual energy. It's going to block the sexual energy. It's going to affect the hormones, the periods, the womb, the ovaries, everything. It's going to get affected there, you know. So I often find, you know, I meet these beautiful, lovely, amazing, beautiful women, you know, and men in my job. Yeah, I mean, I meet such incredible people. I feel so blessed here. But you meet these women especially, and you can see they've been the nice woman all their life, and they've put, you know, all these aspects of themselves aside, and they've tried to be giving, and they've tried to be serving, and, you know, got a little bit drained along the way, but also all this effort to hold the anger down and control the anger, you know, and it's just blocking down the life force, because this is just an energy that needs to flow. And when this energy flows, we don't get passive aggressive, we don't get resentful, we don't get bitter, we don't get rages. We just have this sense of confidence and flow of sexual energy that's just an incredibly beautiful and empowered state to be in, you know. So I just want to check, hey, any questions so far? I'm just going to check here on my other phone. What's going on with the writing? Oh, okay, happy to be here. 40 next week, and I still have a lot of energy. That is pretty juicy. Yeah, this vibrator comment, this is really interesting. Okay, so someone used a vibrator, and afterwards they felt it wasn't great. Yeah, like, and it felt foreign. Honestly, I find like most of the settings on a vibrator, even if it's really, really low, it's actually too much. I think especially when you work with energy and you're in a relationship with your energy, it can be too much. It can throw your energy off of balance, you know. I mean, I personally am not into, especially having someone else use an implement on me. That's definitely something that I think the other person will not know the right sensitivity of touch, you know, to basically be able to get that right, you know. And someone else wrote there, you've been shamed for the sexuality. I mean, hasn't every person? Yeah, women in a specific way, men in another specific way. You know, men are made to feel like they're dangerous. We're made to feel that our sexuality is asking for someone to hurt us. You know, it's like this toxic belief both men and women are given around sexuality that's, you know, or we're made to feel, and more these days, you know, like we have to be these objects, and, you know, that we're made to feel like we've got to be these like sex objects, and this isn't nice as well, is it? You know. So yeah, I mean, just starting off with this emotional field, this has a huge effect on the sexuality. I mean, I heard about, it's so sad, yeah, but this guy, he had sex for the first time ever, one time, and I think he caught HIV the first time he ever had sex. Point was, when his sister found out what happened, she developed vaginismus, yeah, and had vaginismus for years, which is when the vagina is so painful and tight, just from that one emotional, I mean, that's a pretty big shock, right? Your brother catching HIV, yeah, but the point is, you know, this one emotional shock had actually caused this problem. And first of all, I think looking at like, how do the emotions affect us? And of course, look, you can have like so much therapy. You can talk to people, even talk to conventional sexologists and sex therapists and certified and registered sex therapists, so on and so forth, right? To basically, you know, talk through this stuff. And it's great sometimes talking about stuff, right? But it's like talking is in the brain, right? And it's going round and round in the head. And basically, it's not actually going into the body where the problem is. I mean, one of my friends was recently saying she spent like 10,000 euros, I guess it was, on therapy, and just still she had the same problem. And, you know, therapy can be good at a certain time, but it brings one so far, and then there's very often not the big shifts that are actually needed, especially, you know, for deep things and things around sexuality, because unfortunately a lot of the therapists still don't really understand what the sexuality is about. Even if they're a sex therapist, they look at it in a very one-dimensional way. I mean, this system where you actually learn to hack the energy field and just remove these blockages, these can have incredible results for people within literally a matter of weeks of just taking out these blockages that they may never even remember or understand, because it's just, these are these ancient techniques that the people in China and the Taoists figured out thousands of years ago, where they just learned how to take these, you know, big energy blockages, which could be even from previous lifetimes or certainly from like this lifetime, and just learn to take it out of the body and basically just start afresh and start anew and get all the energy meridians flowing properly, you know. So this is kind of the first stage, is to remove these blockages from within the organs, within the vagina, and so on, right? And this allows this sexual energy to start to flow. Now, even if we look from like a Western perspective, Western medicine perspective, or Western science perspective at sexuality, whether you're talking about male or female sexuality, there's a variety of physiological components and messengers, okay, that all fit into place to bring about a healthy sexual functioning. So whether you're talking about the erection, the ejaculation, the lubrication in the woman, the female orgasm, or whatever part of that is, you know, if we look at our ancestors thousands of years ago, we as women, we as you guys as men, women, have not changed much since that time. And people had a very, very slow society, and they would meet, they would go through this process of connecting, falling in love, and so on, and have sex out of that experience in general, usually in a way which was very aligned with the body. They weren't being told to feel guilty and shameful about their own beings and their own body, and they were just going in and just, you know, allowing things to flow really, really naturally without the kind of pressure that we have in our society. So even, you know, putting aside any kind of sexual assault, sexual abuse, and so on, you know, even having experiences like really liking someone, sleeping with them, then they, you know, just disappearing, ghosting out, like this can be really, really traumatic for our bodies. Like, you know, I mean, even a friend of mine who, you know, she used to be this big polyamory advocate and so on, and she said at some point this healer said to her, like, you're just literally going from person to person to person, breaking your own heart. And essentially now she's just in love with one guy and really, really happy. But I think we need to be really, really careful about treating our bodies as the really, really sacred things that they are, and really being careful about who we allow near them and when, and really, really be empowered in our no. Because if we aren't empowered in the no, obviously the yes will mean nothing. And if we're not here also using our masculine to protect ourselves, then when we want to go into our feminine to experience pleasure and sexuality and so on, we're going to have a really, really big problem doing that. So it's interesting because when I work with my clients, normally around 5 or 6 weeks in, which is before we really start working with sexual energy, I'm normally getting feedback around that point that people are going, wow, there's like this beautiful buzzy feeling in my vagina. There's like, you know, a lot more lubrication coming down. This is really, really interesting, you know. And it just goes to show that even this first initial process of unblocking the energy, you know, which can take about 5 to 6 weeks, but I think it's like 5 to 6 years of therapy talking, you know, in a sense, in this short period of time, or at least I would say 1 or 2 years probably, you know. But when one starts to actually work with the sexual energy, clear the blockages out of the vagina and start moving the energy around the body, this includes physical practices, energetic practices, metaphysical practices, you know, meditation style practices, working with energies, with emotions, and so on and so forth. What happens is the whole sexual system just comes into alignment. I mean, it's really interesting because our culture tells us, you know, if you're a woman, you're not having orgasms, or a man that's have a problem with the erection, you know, you could get told by a doctor, come on, you know, people are dying of cancer. Why are you worried about your erection, or you're not having an orgasm, or whatever? You know, I mean, this is actually a very, very deep problem. If anything isn't going right with the sexual functioning, it's a sign that something really, really deep within our bodies is wrong. So if we're having, for example, painful sex, we're having problems with lubrication, we're having problems with orgasms, we're not feeling something well inside of our vagina, this is not just a sign about the overall health of the body that is not good. Yeah, this is actually also a sign that, you know, I mean, my personal experience and what I see with clients is just as we start really activating that sexual energy and really able to have that sexual energy actually move through the body and start rejuvenating the body at the cellular level, it's like everything activates. The vision, you know, is clear, the inner vision to see the destiny, you know. And and from there we are, you know, it's almost like we're gaining the guidance, because this energy is literally like divine energy. It's like we're connecting to source divine energy when we actually start really connecting with and activating this energy. And it just literally gives us everything, you know, to be able to be in our power and to understand that your desires are the key to your destiny. Your true heart's desires are just leading you to your destiny. Your wants, those things you were told as kids, I want doesn't get. Like we were being told you can't have your destiny. But if you find a kid who grew up in a family of the 1%, do you think they were told I want doesn't get? And actually the problem isn't the 1%. The problem is the rest of us who actually buy into this rubbish and live as little small people, thinking, you know, that somehow by keeping ourselves small, we're protecting other people or we're making the world better. This is nonsense. This is rubbish, because we need to be in our power. We need to be creating the beautiful world around us to make a wholesome, amazing, healthy, happy world for everyone to live in. Because when we're not doing this, all we're doing is giving the space for the corporations to take over and start damaging the world and everybody's health. So, I mean, ultimately, well, I have my view on menopause, you know, I mean, I think it's a load of rubbish, basically. I think if you're having symptoms, you're in your 40s and you're having symptoms, it's a sign that things need balancing and healing in the body. It's not just, oh, this is menopause, it's inevitable, or take HRT, or, you know, all of this. I don't buy into this at all, you know. I don't buy into that we are inevitably going to be going into our 50s and everything's sexually shutting down. Not unless there's another problem, but that other problem can be fixed. These other energy blockages can be cleared out so that we can actually start to really be able to get into those years when we've got all that experience, you know, where not only are we doing the Tao practices to actually keep feeling and looking young and full of beautiful, magnetic, vibrant, juicy energy that's bringing to us the lovers that we really, really desire, you know, and we're having all this wisdom, but also that we are really like able to enjoy this sexually this time, you know. So is there any more questions? Right, any questions, guys? I think we all have that experience of vulnerability. I shouldn't be ashamed of my sexuality. No, what a rather, yeah, I mean, and we're made to feel uncomfortable of our sexuality, and it's so insidious, you know. It's almost like in the old days it was better when it was just really, really obvious what it was. But the fact that now it's being fed to us as sexual liberation, now the fact that, you know, it's being that, you know, what's fed to us as sexual liberation is really just damaging and destroying our natural juiciness. You know, the fact that women aren't feeling, I mean, it was bad enough, I remember when I was growing up, when I thought, like, there's nothing wrong with makeup, but if you feel like you have to wear it all the time, it's not liberating, you know. And now it's just going further and further with women feeling like they have to just put on this crazy look, you know, just to kind of be acceptable. And no, this is not, you know, this is rubbish, because when we're really full of this energy and we're working with this energy and we're really in touch with ourselves, that's what's going to magnetize, as we put here, the lovers that we desire and the lovers that we deserve, you know. And for me personally, it's one lover, you know, but I think all of us women together, we're all going to have different lovers. We're not going to be sharing the same one, presumably, you know, so each of us individually get the lover that we desire. Yeah, exactly. And also the thing is, if you're working and you're cultivating your energy, the last thing you want to do is just be putting it out to everybody, because sex with the wrong person, when you don't have the right loving connection, can be incredibly, incredibly draining, you know. So yeah, ladies, this has been so fun. I think I'm going to go live again tomorrow evening around this time, actually. I'm not sure what the topic is, but I'll put it up. I'll put it up tonight. Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about like intimacy and connection. Yeah, I'm going to go live tomorrow evening and talk about intimacy and connection. That's going to be super fun. So guys, and remember next week I'm doing my challenge. Yeah, my 3-day challenge. I'm going to be putting stuff I've like never shared before. We're going to be like really going over practices and that we can start to basically be able to start actually like really manifesting into our lives the kind of, you know, I'm going to just say soul aligned, abundant life that is our destiny that we desire. So have a great, fantastic rest of your day. My rose quartz, I'm just looking at this. My coach told me to wear the rose quartz. It's so nice. I definitely recommend everyone to put on rose quartz at the moment because the hearts are going through a lot of opening up actually around our power and financial situations and so on and so forth. My favorite man just showed up. So you're going to have to rewatch, okay? I'm off to eat my goat arm that I just cooked for myself. So my pleasure, guys. You take care. Bye.